I get pretty angry every time I hear Android. Nobody calls it Android, they call it a Droid phone, no matter what phone it is. And you've said this is only for the Droid series, but even when someone's getting an Evo, they call it a Droid phone.
When someone tells me they're getting a Droid, I say, "Oh, so you're on Verizon?" "No, I'm on AT&T." You're not
getting a Droid.
Because they just like to shorten the word Android, and like it doesn't mean the same thing. Android is an operating system. Droid is a phone by Motorola.
I blame George Lucas. He shouldn't have licensed the term to him. They should have been forced to call it Android.
Well, I mean, it's a cool name. I like it, but just it's kind of sad that people are calling the Android operating system Droid.
I'm not surprised though. It's.
Of course, that could be the same sort of way that a lot of the free software advocates will face palm whenever someone calls it Linux instead of GNU Linux.
Yeah, it's like there's Linux and there's GNU Linux and there's BSD and there's Sun and they're not the same!
I think I have more of a right to get mad because it's totally different. I mean, one isn't even an operating system, it's a name of a phone. I mean, at least GNU Linux and Linux they have a point with that. It's not just being stupid.
Right, they're technically addressing the same thing, sort of.
Yeah, it's related and to the fact that the end user...
Rather than addressing the device versus the OS on the device.
Well, see, here's the hodgepodge of stuff that coalesces together here. The average end user only knows what they've been told. And what they've been told comes from multiple sources. One of the main and big sources, and this is what's causing the Droid thing, is that big shiny box that sits in the living room. What the big shiny box tells them, they know. It's like, I forget who made it. I think I linked to it in one of these videos. It's like, it has they were talking about the iPhone and the Evo and the song. It has a whole other G. Do you even know what that, and it's like, do you even know what that means? No, but I know 4 is bigger than 3, so that's the thing. The end user knows they want something because they're told by that tube that they want it. And then some end users either have a geek at work, a geek at home, a geek in the family, a cousin, a son, something, and they go, okay, the TV told me I want it. Now, I have impulse control, unlike most Americans, so I'm going to wait a second and I'm going to ask somebody who knows if I need it, or who I think I knows if I need it. This phenomenon kills more stuff than people realize. This phenomenon is what killed Windows Vista. IT people did not like Windows Vista. I honestly think, despite all the problems Windows Vista had initially, the grandmas of the world would have loved it. The problem is Microsoft forgot they also had to keep IT people happy. Because if IT people and geeks say it sucks, it doesn't matter if Grandma's going to like it. Grandma's going to hear the IT and geek person they trust say it sucks, and they're not going to mess with it.
I would say I probably got a few people from buying Windows Vista back in the day.
Yeah, I was never as politically correct as I was when somebody asked me about Windows Vista. Because I sat there and said, I hate that it does this, and that. However, I think you'll probably like it. And I was forced to admit that the person that was asking me, they would probably like that it takes over all of this stuff for them. And I said that. It's like,
I've never said that. I said that you shouldn't get it.
Well, I took into account how the person who was asking me used a computer. And the reality is they never messed with any of this stuff anyway, so the fact that the computer took over it was probably a good thing for them.
Whenever I was asked about Vista, my answer was generally, well, I don't like Windows in general, so putting something on a computer that's going to require about 3 times the resources as anything else that's ever come out, I'm definitely not a fan.
I'm a pragmatist in that field, in that I have gotten many of the people who were purely Windows people now on Linux machines. It took some doing, but it's like basically I had to find a distro that would introduce Linux well to them. It's like they went and got a new system, and I put Linux on there, and it's 2 of them and this is me, I didn't tell them it wasn't Windows. And they didn't notice. It wasn't running a Windows theme or anything. They just didn't notice. They were able to. It was a good user-friendly distro, and for what they used a computer for, they didn't need Windows. So they knew this thing down here opens a menu, and this thing does this, and they knew Office means word processing. So they just kind of went through, and then a week later, I said, "You realize you're not using Windows anymore?" I'm like, what? It's like,
a lot of it is.
If you can introduce them to the menus are really very obvious if you know what you're looking at.
Yeah, that's the thing. The key is it has to be one of the good user-friendly distros. And and honestly, the two people I did it with proved to me that a lot of the inhibition Windows users get when they switch off of and start messing with Linux is a perception thing. There's this perceived, it's a different OS, therefore everything's going to be different, therefore I'm going to have to learn everything all over again. And if you can just set that aside for a minute, it's actually not entirely different at all. I mean, it is, but it isn't. It's things just are where they make sense for the most part. In a lot of distros.
A lot of it, it's just the theme matters so much for this stuff. It's unbelievable. I mean, I've shown my parents, my mother, Ubuntu, and she doesn't really like Ubuntu. And I showed her Mint,
and she loves
Mint.
Mint.
The different operating system, and she loves it. So it's not like she used it. It's just she looked at it and she's like, "Oh, I love that." It's just because it has a better theme. So.
No, it's like honestly, I hate to admit this, but it's the reason we appreciate Linux is because we're technical people, and let's face it, we're all geeks. So we have an appreciation for the stability of a better file system and the way things are organized and the advantages that go with the true multi-user system and all this behind-the-scenes stuff that just makes, and the fact that, like Jordan was saying earlier, I'm doing the same amount with a third the resources, so my computer is actually free to compute. The average end user cares about none of these things. They care about, is this bit shiny? Is this thing here? Do I know where to click on this thing? And for every user, those things are different.
Where's the internet button?
Yeah, where's the internet button? Where's the thing? It's like this was the crash course I give a lot of people when I convert them to a Linux system. I go, this thing that isn't a start menu, that's a start menu. This thing, that's your internet browser. This thing, that's your email. This thing right here, that's your word processing. Ready? Go.
You know how many people don't know what a browser is?
That's what I say, it's your internet.
People what their browser is. So many people say that their browser is Google. It's
either that it's Google or that it's Windows.
Yeah.
And I don't hear Windows very often.
What's for your browser? Oh, I use Google.
Okay, so browser equals search engine.
There was actually a video I saw a while back, I think it was from Google themselves, where they had a guy go out on the street and ask people for, hours and hours, what browser do you use? Because they were wanting to market Chrome, and something like 90% of them answered Google, or they answered Yahoo, or what they were being asked.
So,
let's see if I can find the link to that.
Surprises me.
I hadn't heard about this. This is.
They don't know that they're using IE.
Well, no, it's like, and what is it people are saying back? It's like there are so many people out there who associate that little blue E with internet. They think that means internet. I don't know why, they just do.
It's called Internet Explorer.
Alright, I found the link.
Put that in the show so I can put a link to it in the description.
Yeah.
What is it, him asking?
I'm sorry, it's actually a video called What is a Browser? It's on YouTube. And basically it's a guy from Google went out and asked, it says 50 passersby of different ages and backgrounds in Times Square what a browser is.
And I ask people this, and I'm in Silicon Valley, people still answer those kind of things. It's huge.
Hey.
Different browser, they still answer because they're not the ones that use the different walked by some kind of geek that they know, recognized that they're using IE and head, and said, hey, can I switch this? And they're just like, okay, he's going to make my computer better. And they switched it for them. They don't know that they're using something different. So they still think that their browser is Google.
Until they find that one website that's developed for IE only, and then they complain.
No, I can top that. I don't think Mr. Bit realizes this, but just because when he's using that Apple email service, I'm assuming it's an Apple email service, and I didn't recognize it. I'm like, this is a weird web extension, so I actually went to the website as the extension for Sun, and when you go there, it says you must be running Safari. I did not know there were websites on the internet that said you must be running Safari, blah or blah. It wouldn't recognize Firefox. It said you have to be running Safari.
You tried user agent searcher.
I don't run that because I don't want to be counted wrong in the metrics. I am a Linux box running Firefox, damn it. Screw you, Internet, if you're too stupid to understand that's a user demographic. I do complain to the sites that get that wrong.
What I really hate is when these sites won't let you use something because you're on Linux or because you're on a different browser, when in reality it would work fine in that browser. What I do like is when sites will tell you your browser's not supported.
Click here to go anyways.
It may mess up, but you can try anyway. That's what I like.
Yeah, and that's how TurboTax does it actually. But every time I go to the TurboTax site, I'm just like, it's, you know, what does an HTML web page have to do with the OS? Really?
I mean, I
really.
don't understand them saying that. They're not supported. We're not going to do anything for you. We're not going to give you any support if you call us, but they'll let you use it. I mean, I tried, I wanted to try, just for comparative reasons, Microsoft's online Office suite.
Uh-huh.
They won't let you, unless it says that you're running Windows or Mac on Firefox or IE. But it works fine on Firefox and the Linux version. I just have to switch the user agent. So obviously it's not a problem in the code. It's just they don't want to let you use it.
But don't you know the magical rule at both Microsoft and Apple, even though many people disagree with me, including people I do shows with, and that is Linux is bad. Linux, no, there is no Linux. Linux goes away. It's like, honestly, the only thing a web page should test for is what version of the browser you're using. That's it. That's what it should test for. What version of the browser you're using, because you're either using the right version of the browser or you're not. And you should write your pages so they support at least 5 browsers, whether you like or dislike these browsers. Your web page should support IE, Firefox, Safari, Chrome, and Opera.
IE 7 and up.
Yeah, IE 7 and up. IE 6 must die, no matter what the federal government says.
Actually, if you go to my website from IE6 now, I've got that WordPress plugin that pops up and says, you're using an outdated browser, please get something better, you suck.
Yeah, although there's a lot of places that won't use those. And you know, if you ever need to understand why your government services websites are so outdated, you can understand that in one swift stroke. The federal government mandates that most government services and buildings, including ultra-secure ones like the Department of Defense and other things, must use IE6. Do you ever need to understand why government sites are just the worst sites in the world? Remember that.